Spider-Man 2002 is not only an iconic piece of superhero cinema, but cinema in general. People who grew up during the rise of the MCU, and with the boom of superhero movies in the 2010s, are probably not fully aware of just how big Raimi's Spider-Man was during the 2000s. It was a cultural phenomenon that seemed to be everywhere. All manner of merchandise was produced, tie-in video games were developed, and even parodies were spawned. Films like Blade and X-Men walked, so that Spider-Man could run. And it was more of a sprint. But the first Spider-Man film Raimi made could have looked very different indeed to what we are all so familiar with today. As is the case with most forms of media production, many concept designs were produced before settling on the final designs, and Spider-Man was no different. This video is going to primarily focus on the many concept designs produced for the characters of Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, and there are indeed many. So let's cut the chat and get stuck in. Raimi's intention when it came to adapting the classic Steve Ditko's Spider-Man design to screen was never to reinvent the image of Spider-Man or to put a new, unique twist to it. Instead, Raimi's desire was to simply translate the iconic design to screen the best he could. That being said, it didn't stop concept artists from putting their own spin on their designs. Some artists produced designs that were extremely close to the source material, while others decided to introduce some more experimental elements, especially early on in the process. British Oscar-winning costume designer James Ackerson was hired to bring the designs to life, who, after working on more dramatic productions, felt that he was returning to his fantasy roots with Spider-Man, as his first costume design job was back in the 1970s on Doctor Who. He actually designed the iconic Fourth Doctor's costume. Initially, however, Ackerson had very different ideas for the Spider-Man costume. Unlike Raimi, Ackerson didn't grow up with Spider-Man comics and felt the design needed modernising, so early designs experimented with ideas that could have been, quite frankly, disastrous, with one of these ideas being a semi-transparent plastic Spider-Man helmet thing? Thankfully, Ackerson and the designers found themselves coming back to the core image of Spider-Man in the end, and designs started focusing on much more comic-faithful interpretations. Let's now take a closer look at some of the artists and their designs, to see just how different Spider-Man 2002 could have looked. We'll begin with Miles Teves, whose attention seemed to be focused more so on the Green Goblin going by the number of designs publicly available, and we'll come to these later in the Green Goblin chapter, don't you worry about that. Teves' artwork for Spider-Man are among my personal favourites, but sadly there are only a small number of concept drawings he produced for the Spider-Man costume that are readily available, and due to his site being largely on the broken side, I was unable to see if there were any more, though I don't remember there being so when the site actually worked. Teves' Spider-Man designs remain close to the image of Spider-Man, and they capture a more organic feel, which seems to be a common theme throughout Teves' portfolio. Though I don't like the webbing pattern on the blue sections of the suit, as seen in these two pieces, but this organic vibe does make me think that Teves would have done wonders with the symbiote suit and Venom. My favourite is easily this piece, with those great 90s McFarlane style eyes, and I can't help but wonder if the designers of the Amazing Spider-Man films borrowed some elements from Teves' concepts, such as the red strip going down the side of the leg. Overall, Teves gets a big thumbs up. Next up is Warren Manser, who again produced some of my favourite pieces of concept art, including this piece featuring that iconic Spidey pose, which was later used on various pieces of 2002 Spider-Man merch. Manser was instrumental in mapping out the fine details and layout of the suit, such as defining muscle shading and suit textures. These concepts are actually photos of Tobey Maguire just standing there posing in the suit that Warren then drew over. One thing that stands out to me with Manser's designs is that they are far darker and moodier interpretations of Spider-Man. where characters and environments are covered in deep shadow. Some interesting details to note are Mance's initial logo designs, which bear a striking resemblance to the logo used for the PS4 Spider-Man suit, and the return of that amazing Spider-Man leg strip. Again, great concept art. Mance gets another big Raimiverse thumbs up. Like Teeves, James Carson's designs seem to focus far more heavily on the Goblin. As far as I can see, we don't get any actual Spider-Man suit designs here, apart from designs focusing on Spider-Man's arms. Yeah, it's better than it sounds, trust me. Okay, this one not so much. It's just a naked arm, granted, but we do see a design here for the organic web slit, which is quite interesting, if not a little gross. Not impressed? Well, we can do a little better. Alright, here's the good stuff. Web shooters. Yes, web shooters were at one point considered during production, with props based on Carson's designs actually being made. They even make an appearance in an early trailer for Spider-Man. Pretty sweet. Unfortunately, however, we have to return to the plastic Spider-Man helmet thing. Carson produced this concept art based on the idea, which granted appeared to come from the mind of James Ackerson. Well, we all have some misses, don't we? Along with movie concept artists, comic book artists were also hired to produce designs for Spider-Man 2002, including Bernie Wrightson, and you can immediately see the comic book feel oozing through here. You can see designs that feel Ultimate Spider-Man inspired, designs that look more Ditko-esque, and then designs that begin to align more with the design we eventually see on screen. On the whole, these designs don't stray very far at all from the classic design. Even that horrible plastic mask idea still had a great Spider-Man look to it. When it comes to the suit we ultimately get on screen, I think it was perfect. I wouldn't change anything about it, not even those triangular Raimi eyes. I love them. In contrast to Spider-Man's design, the Green Goblin proved to be far trickier to translate to screen. The Raimi Spider-Man suit remains close to the comic image, while the Goblin's costume takes far more creative liberties. The choice was ultimately made to update the Goblin and his technology for more contemporary trends, most notably the military connection, which I feel was a completely logical change to justify the existence of the Goblin's suit and gear. However, the Green Goblin went through a vast range of designs, each being radically different to the next. Raimi and the production team clearly had trouble trying to find a way to execute the Goblin in a way that felt grounded in reality, but also still resembling the core gargoyle-esque image of the classic Goblin. And who can blame them? The Green Goblin is a notoriously difficult comic design to translate to cinema in a way that doesn't feel too silly. I mean, look at how the Amazing Spider-Man 2 turned out. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the designs that didn't make the cut. We're going to go over some of the same concept artists that we did before with the Spider-Man costume, so let's get stuck in. I mentioned before that a lot of Teeves' work seems to have an organic quality about it, and that is nowhere more obvious than in his Green Goblin designs, where Teeves heavily leaned into Goblin concepts that integrated biomechanical technology, which was a theme the production team were leaning into for a time. They are superb designs, and I think the biomechanical feel is the perfect solution to a Goblin design of this style. However, I also feel that these designs go a little too far and result in being too creature-esque and otherworldly. They're just too alien. Ultimately, the Green Goblin is meant to be a man in a suit, not a literal goblin creature, and these designs feel like a full-on physical transformation of some sort. The Goblin mask, created by Amalgamated Dynamics, which used Teeves' designs as inspiration, seemed to find a happy medium between Teeves' creature designs and the more practical suit we get on the film, but with more of that biotech theme still in play. I also wonder just how Willem Dafoe would have felt wearing the heavy prosthetics required to pull off such a look. Warren Manser seems to have produced the most varied Goblin designs, and they all retain that moody and brooding look that we've come to expect from Manser. His early concepts seem to capture the comic book look the most when compared with the other artists. They're delightfully devilish and gothic. We can then see the designs evolve as the decision was made to have the Goblin's mask and suit be a more practical effort with modern militaristic inspirations, with this sleek and high-tech design being especially close to the final product, and an image I particularly like. I think this version of the suit almost looks better than the final version. Manser also produced a wide range of designs for the static mask that explore various possible ways in which it could have been executed. This one here is particularly interesting as it seems to incorporate elements of the tribalistic masks Norman is so fascinated with in the movie. We also get this design, which shows how the Goblin mask could open up to reveal Norman Osborn's face inside. Another idea I quite like, though wonder why Norman would ever create a mask like it. Imagine if Norman had accidentally activated it while talking to, I don't know, Spider-Man?
You're an amazing creature, Spider-Man. You and I are not so different.
I'm not like you. You're a murderer.
Well, to each his own.
Mr. Osborn.
How do I close this thing? Quickly. There we go. Did you see that?
Manser's designs definitely make me realise that the static mask was the right way to go. While the more comic accurate masks by Teeves do look undoubtedly cool, I think they would have caused endless problems when it came to practicality and plot. Carson has a chance to redeem himself here with his Goblin designs after this. But does he? Let's take a look. Ah! Oh dear. No, make it stop. What is that? Now, yes. That's rather mean of me. Carson's Goblin designs do significantly improve, and he did actually produce designs that are among my favourites. Like Teeves, some of Carson's designs also lean into the biotech aesthetic with designs like this. I really like this design and how the suit and glider almost seamlessly blend together. What is also interesting to note here is the use of the wrist blades that the final suit does not use, but Harry Osborn later will in Spider-Man 3. These two designs specifically are two of my favourites of Carson's. I think Carson very cleverly blends the classic look of the Goblin with practicality here, especially with the mask. A very smart way to incorporate Norman's actual face into the Goblin helmet without overexposing it. Good job, Carson. This more than makes up for the plastic Spider-Man mask. I'll stop talking about that now. You're redeemed. Now, back to good old Bernie Wrightson. Wrightson produced some very interesting Goblin designs indeed. He looks like a depraved madman. The level of intricacy Wrightson incorporates into some of his Goblin concepts also reminds me of some of Teeves' designs, along with the more creature-esque leanings. He looks like Gollum or something. Though some feel more like suit variations that the Green Goblin would have worn in the comics more so than in an actual Spider-Man film. I'm sure Willem Dafoe would have loved wearing this. Finally, we're going to take a look at an artist who seemed to only produce concepts for the Green Goblin, and that artist is James Limer. I couldn't find many pieces Limer created for the film. Whether he only produced a small number of designs, or they are simply not public, I don't know. Though the Spider-Man book Behind the Mask does include extra designs that I haven't been able to find anywhere else online. To see if I could find any more designs, I visited his site to investigate further, and I ended up very confused indeed. His site appears to be in a worse state than Teeves' site, with tabs sending me to, yoga techniques and sheds? Anyway, Limer's designs certainly have a unique look to them, and once again look to incorporate the biomechanical Goblin idea that was being considered for a time. Though I have to admit, I'm not particularly fond of these. For whatever reason, they give me vibes of that weird Spider-Man musical from 2011. What even was that? Well, that brings us to the end of this little adventure looking over various concept artists' work done for Spider-Man 2002. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. The film could have looked very different indeed to what we ultimately ended up with. It could have looked arguably better, but certainly much worse. In the end, I think Spider-Man 2002 looks great. It worked and mostly everyone loved it, and still does. I would be very reluctant to change anything. Though, if I were pushed, I would be tempted to tweak certain elements of the Green Goblin's costume. I'd definitely like to incorporate more of some of Mantz's other ideas potentially. But what do you fellow webheads think? Are there things you would change? Would you have preferred to have seen other concepts chosen instead of what we ultimately got? Comment below and let's talk. Also, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more Spider-Man trilogy content. And until next time, bye for now, and remember, with great power comes great responsibility.